Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be taking a first look at the Penguin Archive. This is a new series of 90 paperbacks published to coincide with Penguin's 90th anniversary in 2025. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so I have got 6 Penguin Archives of the 90. These were the ones that I fancied from the initial selection, and we'll have a little look through these. And also I brought down some of the original penguins from my collection, and I thought we could sort of do a bit of comparison, because you can see sort of the different design influences, and where some of this, I think they've maybe not missed a trick, but I think the explanation about a penguin since could be a little bit clearer, and in some cases I think it's absolutely misleading, and for that I'm actually a little bit annoyed at Penguin for doing this. I think it could be a lot clearer, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So if we go through the first one then, which is Simonon's Stan the Killer. Now what they've tried to do with this is use elements from different aspects of penguin history. So, I'm a massive penguin fan, but my collection post 1970 is a little bit more sporadic. It tends to be just the science fiction and or some crime authors that I like. Pre-1970, or pre-ISBN in effect, is the period where I've got very comprehensive runs, and I love to see how the design aesthetics in Penguin change over the years from 1935 to 1970. That's part of the attraction, and I think what makes them so eminently collectible. So I do take my hat off to Penguin for celebrating the design aspects of this with these different sort of designs, and you can see anyone who's knows Penguin or has read old Penguins will recognize these sort of design elements. So yeah, they're fantastic. I thought it was summed up quite nicely on Penguin's website, and they have done a little dedicated landing page for the Penguin Archive, and I'll quote from that right now. In celebration of our 90th birthday, Penguin Classics have delved into the archives to create a new series of 90 short paperbacks. Each title features its own unique cover design in red foil, described by Penguin Classics art director Jim Stoddart as a love letter to Penguin's design heritage. From a Japanese tea ceremony to the mean streets of New York, from ancient battlefields to haunted graveyards and into outer space, the Penguin Archive series brings together a rich, eclectic range of some of the greatest, most transporting stories, ideas and poetry ever written. Well, quite the boast, really. But I mean, they've got one of the most incredible backlists of books that any publisher has got. Not forgetting that they incorporate more recently the Random House titles. But once again, there was a few little question marks as someone who's a real fan of Penguin and Penguin design that left me sort of scratching my head a little bit. So I don't want to be nitpicky, but first of all, I do want to give you my honest impressions. So I got these books here from Amazon, and I got them just after publication, and all 6 of them came together in one sort of mailer envelope. And as you can see, because these covers are white, they show the lightest bit of rubbing or fingerprints that you could imagine. So some of them are actually, they're not that like mint. It's not as mint as I would like, and that's going to be the case with these, because they are, well, they got white covers. They're just going to be very easily damaged. So although they're not perfect, they just sort of show signs that was got a big crease in it on the spine there, and some of them turned up a little bit grubby, which I was a little bit disappointed about, because maybe someone in the warehouse with their when they were picking it possibly, but you can see they have got a little bit worn sort of in the post, as it were. But that's just a small complaint. Whether white was the right way to do it, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. So look, we'll start off with this one, which, it says a penguin since 2000. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this title was first published in 2000 in Penguin? Does it mean H.P. Lovecraft was first published in 2000? It doesn't really say, does it? Now inside, the other thing, the actual text, nice and clear, very, very readable, A format, easy to hold in the hand. So I've got no qualms at all about the actual presentation of this. beautiful, exactly what we would expect from Penguin. So yeah, H.P. Lovecraft, 1890 to 1937, a Penguin since 2000. Now, I haven't checked particularly to see if H.P. Lovecraft was published by Penguin in any form before 2000. I'd be amazed if he wasn't, in all honesty. But this one says, first published in the United States of America in Astounding Stories, 1936. This edition published in Penguin Classics, 2005. So I'm guessing this is a first thus, Anyway, $5.99 cover price. They're a little bit less online on Amazon, and I believe some of the shops are actually doing some promotions on these. So I saw online Foils in London were doing a very good promotion for these. So that's one of them. Now this one really had me scratching my head because I thought this has got to be wrong. This is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Now, when The Time Machine was first published, it came out as Penguin published a Wells Million, which was 10 titles, 100,000 of each book. They did it with several authors. Agatha Christie, it happened with twice. And The Time Machine was one of those. So I thought, well, what do they mean, a Penguin since 1936? So I went to my collection, dug out my original copy of The Time Machine. This is a Penguin first printing of it from that Million list. And well, what's going on? So they've got the tri-bands there. The actual Penguin Books font is the same for Penguin Archive. So I've seen that. Yeah, they've got the side bands there. Obviously the logo, well, that's not right, because that double logo was used for double volumes. This is a thick vintage Penguin, and that was the only time you saw the two Penguins together as a double volume. Still not the end of the world, because they're taking design elements from the entire Penguin list. So I wasn't perhaps looking for a facsimile of this one, although that would have been really nice, because it's one of my favourites by him, although not my actual favourite. That is The Invisible Man. But what really got me was, what's this? Since 1936. Well, I was certain that the H.G. Wells 10 came out in the 40s, and here we are. In fact, it says it inside. So this edition of The Time Machine is one of a uniform set of 10 volumes of Mr. Wells' work, specifically published in commemoration of his 80th birthday, September the 21st, 1946. And those were the other books that came out with it. Definitely not 1936. I thought, well, Penguin did publish H.G. Wells before 1946. Maybe they meant The Invisible Man. As I said, it's my favourite. So I've got the original Penguin first print of this and the reprint. Now, the first printing of The Invisible Man was published in 1938, and that says 1936. And the reprint, obviously, is I think the year after, 1939, July 39. So it definitely wasn't that. It was only then, after racking my brain, that I realised that the very earliest H.G. Wells appearance in Penguin was actually as Penguin Main Series number 31. And this was indeed published in 1936. So evidently, what this means is, on the front, a Penguin since 1936 is very much referring to the author and not the actual book. And I don't think that's very clear at all. Well, I find that a little bit frustrating. I just think they could have done a slightly better job in identifying when these authors perhaps were printed. If it was me, I would have done a Penguin since 1946, and it would have been as part of, maybe even had a little picture of the original edition on the back, just on the back there, the original Penguin from 1946. That, to me, would have been so much more fun than what they've ended up doing. Personal opinion, of course, but I wanted to bring that to your attention because that's The Time Machine. We have a look at the Simonon. Now, once again, I was like, a Penguin since 1950. Now, I have got paperbacks of Simonon pre-1950, but in actual fact, they're not actually Penguins. They are by other publishers. Pam, for example, did a couple in the late 40s. So this one, it says, this was from a First published in French, in 1944. Published in the New Investigations of Inspector Maigret by Penguin Classics in 2022. And this is 3 stories from that particular publication, and the first one being called Stan the Killer. But now that we know what it means, a penguin since 1950, I could then go into my collection and find this one here, which is the very first Simonon in the main series penguin in the UK. And this one was indeed, there's 2 books, Penguin Series 719. This one was indeed first published 1950. There we are. However, that's still not right, because Penguin Collector Society did a dedicated book on Maigret and the Penguin books, because he is so collectible. And this is a really great book. It's only 750 copies, so it's quite limited, and unfortunately they've sold out. But as you can see, it's really, really great. It covers all the new translations as well, which I think are excellent. However, just a brief glance through this, and Maigret, in actual fact, or Simonon, actually got published before 1950. If I can find the page, but it was actually in Penguin USA. So here we are. Here's the illustrated catalogue of Penguin Maigrets, and American Penguin, that one there, and that one there, 564 was published in September 1945, and 579 was published in February 46. So in actual fact, they really should say a penguin since 1945. However, I guess they go into the British one, and it's a celebration of 90 years of the UK publishing a penguin, so we'll let them off that. But once again, confusion amongst collectors, I would say. Well, hopefully this one is going to be fairly straightforward. This is All God's Children Got Pride, and it's Chester Himes. Now, it says Chester Himes, a penguin since 1974. That is correct, because here is a couple of books from 1974 that Penguin indeed published, and these are Chester Himes. They've not used the same logo. There's very little, in fact there's no Chester Himes styling from this early period on these archive books at all. But these were from that is correct, Penguin did first publish him in 74. Prior to that in the UK, Panther had him in paperback. This particular book here, it is a selection from the collected short stories of Chester Himes, which was published in 1990, and as a Penguin Classic, or this selection published from that as a Penguin Classic in 2025. So All God's Children Got Pride, those stories there. This is, once again, it's like a first collection thus. So this next one is a bit of modern science fiction. It says a penguin since 1982. That was when Penguin SF first published Stanislaw Lem, and this Polish author gets a lot of high praise, and he's actually really collectible, and I really didn't want to miss out on grabbing this one. In actual fact, sort of the minimalist cover on this actually I think really works. It's a really nice one, this. Yeah, so it says a penguin since 1982. Those early ones, even though they're from the 80s, they're still over 40 years old now, are actually quite expensive, and it's one I haven't actually got. But yeah, so the Seventh Voyage was published in Polish in 1971. It was published in the Star Diaries by Penguin Classics in 2015. And first published in Tales of Pre the Pilot, 2019. And The Mask was first published in Mortal Engines in Penguin Classics 2016. So that's where those 3 sort of novellas have come from. And yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that one. And then the last one we've got is, well, one of my all-time favourite authors, and that's George Orwell. Now, I thought, I like the styling on this, and I recognised it instantly because this styling was used on multiple copies of Penguin specials in the early 1940s, and it's sort of this like, well, it's got like a background, and I don't know the exact name of this font, but that's what they've used on this one. And once again, this is it says George Orwell, a penguin since 1940, and I had to really, really put my thinking cap on because it doesn't give you any clues. Now, this is like a new collection, so if we have a look again, it says essays first published between 1931 and 1948. That's in there. This selection first published in Penguin Classics 2025. So it is, once again, a unique collection. And there are some ones in there that I recognise. He is fantastic for his essays. They're just superb. The 1940 that they're referring to is this, which was Penguin New Writing. So Penguin New Writing was an anthology series which came out in 1940. It was launched, and this was the very first volume, and the very first story of the very first volume is George Orwell's famous Shooting an Elephant. Absolutely fantastic. And these first couple of Penguin New runs are actually quite scarce. But this is 1940, and it's Penguin 305, and it was obviously completely new anthology to Penguin. So there we go. I think overall, I'm glad I've got the 6 that I've got. I don't think I'd want to get all 90, but we'll have a look at the full list now, just so you can see the whole lot in a little montage. So we can go through, you can have a look at them. Obviously, they're available directly from Penguin. I bought my ones from Amazon, but you do take the chance of perhaps the copies not turning up in absolutely tip-top shape. But these are very much designed to be read and enjoyed. As I said, the font is beautiful. It looks as if none of them they haven't used old editions. These have all been reset, and they're brand new sort of typefaces, and I think they are really, really gorgeous to hold in the hands. So perfect to put a few in your bag this summer if you're going on holiday. That's where I would be taking a few, that's for certain. I mean, as I said, my only criticism would be the slightly weirdness about putting a penguin since 1940. It's absolutely not clear that they're referring to the author rather than the actual book. And I think a beautiful touch would have been just to have included a little miniature shrunk down copy of the original jackets on some of these. I think that would have been fantastic. But apart from that, I think it's a worthy little effort. Obviously, 10 years' time is going to be the absolute ultimate anniversary when Penguin are 100 years old. But for now, 90 penguins in the Penguin archive, well, I don't think we can really complain. So I'll leave you with the next list of all the other 90 books, so you can have a look through and see the full range yourself. Thank you very much for watching today. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.